From Screen to Shelf. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of From Screen to Shelf with myself, Will, Gabe, and Chase. What are we going to be talking about today? We're going to be talking about movies, but we're going to be talking about a slightly different kind of movie, the video game adaptation, which we have had many
Too many, bro.
video game adaptations, haven't we?
Yeah, a lot.
You know, some good, some bad, some angry, some sad.
Mainly just
but what
bad.
I can't say, mainly just bad, but unless we're going to talk about Uwe Boll's filmography, which are obviously, the pinnacle of
it's the gold standard.
Gold standard of not only cinema but video game adaptations in general. So we'll get into those, some of my personal favorites. But before we get into those, we want to thank everybody for tuning in right now, whoever's listening, for checking us out up until this point. We appreciate that. For those of you who are checking us out on YouTube, we appreciate all the feedback that we've gotten so far. Continue to watch those videos, like and subscribe. If you like the podcast, on whether it's Apple, Spotify, I said it right that time, check that out as well, and just continue to support us. But yeah, we really appreciate the feedback. So thanks again, on behalf of all of us, for doing that. So just wanted to get that out there before we opened up the discussion. But yeah, I don't know which one of you guys wants to kind of open this up. We're going to talk about.
I don't know. Chase
movies.
has the list in front of him.
Yeah,
we were kind of talking a little bit about all the different movies that have come out.
Yeah, he's fidgeting over there. So go ahead and.
I'm tweaking about video game adaptations. I used to live and breathe for these things, and I even have some admiration for some older ones, like the original 1993 Super Mario Brothers. I have a little bit of nostalgia for it, just because it's just goofy fun when you get a hold of certain movies as a kid, which is ultimately at a point is who these people were targeting, right? They weren't targeting people that grew up with these. They are targeting the audience that was actively playing them, right? To skip way ahead for a little bit, like The Last of Us, right? They are targeting the modern audience, right? Last of Us has been out for a while, but they're also targeting the people that are glued to the story. They want it to be they want it to be truthful to the formula, truthful to what they presented. So whenever you go back, really the biggest one, I want to say, I can't find exactly what the first video game adaptation was, but I want to say it was just before or after. So it's either Super Mario Bros. Or there was an animated Japanese Sonic movie. I don't know if you guys knew this. It was just a little.
I know you would know it.
Oh, of course. Yeah, of course. So, it's actually a fantastic movie. It's from Sonic CD. They have an intro. It introduces Metal Sonic going to the past, the present, and the future. And it's actually rather dark. It's not really comedic. It's a very dark movie. And it's got one of my favorite fight scenes in a movie in there between Sonic and Metal Sonic. And it's just fun. Really, really goofy. And then you go from Super Mario Bros. To the Jean-Claude Van Damme Street Fighter. And so to present some facts to you, just to encompass the changing landscape and how things kind of go back and forth, Super Mario Bros. Had a budget of $48 million, only pulled in $38.9 million at this time, not adjusted for inflation. Now, then you go to the Jean-Claude Van Damme Street Fighter. It pulled in $99.4 million, just under 100, on a budget of $35 million, which I would consider that a success, right?
Yeah.
Especially at that time, adjusted for inflation, that would definitely be a success. But the one that changed the landscape of how we perceive it was the ever so loved Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat did 124.7, just under 125, on a $20 million budget. That's insane. That's really, really good. I have a lot of admiration for the Mortal Kombat series. I absolutely love them. That's my franchise. I love it. Really, really good franchise. And I'm actually a huge fan of the first and second Mortal Kombat movie as well, because then you skip forward to 1997, then you get MK Annihilation. That one's considered to be kind of a stinker, but again, it was made for a more adult audience because the MK games were one of the reasons, and Night Trap were one of the reasons why you have an ESRB rating now, because they were just kind of putting it out there. That one only did $51.376 million, not adjusted for inflation, on a $30 million budget. So definitely not a win. But I mean, I guess if you were to take the profits from the first one, it equalized itself out. Then you start kind of getting into a little bit of a dry period. You get the Pokemon movies, and then you start getting the so good, I don't care what anybody has to say, the Angelina Jolie Tomb Raider movies smack. Those are great.
I agree with that. Yep.
I actually enjoyed them, man. The second one's not that. The second one's okay, but the first one wasn't bad.
It's good. Like I think that was kind of where you start getting into the ball, where like you start getting into the early 2000s. Just keep making video game adaptations until you get one that really, really sticks. The Lara Croft Tomb Raider one, as of this point, was. Now, I don't know how you can really gauge it, especially whenever it has a budget of $115 million and it pulled in $275 million. I'd have to assume 90% of that went to Angelina Jolie's salary. So probably. I think that's a safe assumption. But I don't know if that would be considered a success whenever you double that for advertising. I just remember this also being the talk of the town when it came out. Mm-hmm. So then we start getting into Resident Evil, right? And then we're going to kind of leave everything else up for... Doom, we're going to forget about you. I'm not even going to talk about you outside of that. That's your 5 seconds of fame.
What do you mean? No, it's the best
one. So Lara Croft and then Resident Evil, right? So this is going to kind of get us into our talk track, into the changing landscape of everything. Because then you get Resident Evil, and a lot of people really like that. Resident Evil is kind of like how I see Mortal Kombat, where it's such it's near and dear to me, right? So Resident Evil has to have the most movies, 6, I want to say, out of any video game adaptation. And they're relatively successful. $33 million budget, pulled in 102.9, 103. That's successful. And the first one was a lot of creative freedom, but took a lot from the very first game with what you could with the tank style, survival horror aspect. And really gave you quite a bit. Mila Jovovich played her role really, really well. A lot of the people in there, it took a lot of freedom, but it still gave you the core essence and story until you get into just what it became. It found its own identity, and it kind of said fuck it all whenever it came to the story and, being faithful. And it became more like, hey, we're going to do our own thing, present our own world, and give you things from the video game, but still have our own thing, which is cool. I like it. Resident Evil funds are good, or Resident Evil films are good, fun popcorn flicks. So once you start getting into that, you start getting into Silent Hill, Max Payne, then you start getting into more animated movies. Prince of Persia with Jake Gyllenhaal, fun movie. I don't know if you haven't seen it, I'd check it out. High budget, really fun. I'm always a sucker for movies set in the desert. I like that landscape. So then you're going to get into where things really changed, and I'm going to kind of put it on this particular movie, especially after budget. Warcraft. I remembered that being the talk of the town, a massive CGI fest, $160 million budget, pulled in $440 million. Then you get into Sonic the Hedgehog. Oh, I've been waiting to get to this one. That's why I
the worst video game adaptation of all time?
You're getting Sonic and Last of Us confused, I think. So,
man.
Sonic pulled in, and this is staggering.
Where's that disconnect button, Gabe?
Yeah, I know, right?
he got too used to the other thing we were using. He didn't want to wait in a waiting room. So Sonic came out a few weeks before everything shut down. So it pulled in a $320 million on a budget of $90 million. That's a massive success. Then you get the second Sonic the Hedgehog, which did better by almost $100 million, $405 million on 110,000. And, whenever it gets to this is where I'm going to get into the changing landscape now that we've kind of encompassed what we're going to talk about, because a lot of those Ball movies were direct to DVD, stuff like that. They had small theatrical runs. Blood Rain, I believe he did, not House of a Thousand Corpses. What is the other one? House of the Dead? Is that what it's called? Like the old laser arcade style? Yeah. He did those, and then I think he adapted Postal, if I remember right. If I am recalling that.
Yep.
And so even Rampage, which is like one of the most niche games that you could really make a video game adaptation, came out and did 428 million out of a $120 million budget. That's a success. It's pretty much King Kong. I mean, there's really no difference between that and King Kong. There's a little bit of creative freedom in there, but it's King Kong, man. And then, you get Mortal Kombat, the reboot, 84 million on a $55 million budget. And the reason I'm presenting these facts and not just giving you something that you can just look up here, there's a lot of things that they're doing. So whenever you go into Sonic the Hedgehog and you start talking about how that was adapted, right? It got a lot of online views and attention because whenever that trailer dropped and you could see his teeth and he looked extremely human-like.
Weird. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So whenever you could see his teeth and everything like that, it garnered a lot of online criticism. So a lot of people that didn't even give any care about Sonic were tuning in, seeing what everybody was talking about, the criticism about it. Then they changed it. They didn't change the movie as much as they just changed how Sonic looked. So I think there were a lot of factors that played into that. Outside of it being an actually solid, fun family flick, it was faithful. It gave you some things with Sonic. It had some creative freedom, but giving you with Jeff Fowler's world and everything like that. It's not a direct adaptation, right? The way they used the rings, everything, but it's solid fun, and everybody thought it was going to be terrible. So when your expectations are below the ground and you end up being rather appeased about it, you come out relatively happy and you get a success like this. And you want to support projects like that when they listen to the fans and they go and rehaul the entire CGI. They got to redo the whole movie. Sonic's in 98% of the movie, so they have to redo all of that. So that's where you get love. And then you get Mortal Kombat, the new reboot. And then the problem with that is they give you a world that you're familiar with a lot of creative freedom. But the biggest talking track that I've seen people have issues with on this, and it's my personal issue with it, the main character that they have you follow, Cole, is never in a Mortal Kombat game. He's a random NPC that you have to care about all of a sudden, right? So you get Kano, you get Sonya, you get Liu Kang, I believe Kung Lao's in it. He might not be. But you get Scorpion, Sub-Zero. But then you have to follow this character that you really don't care about. And I don't know who made that decision or pulled that script instead of a different one. That was the worst thing they could have done. Change the main character for literally anybody else, and you would have had a solid movie. But $84 million on a $55 million budget really isn't going to get anybody riding.
That was the 2021 movie?
Yeah, that was the one
2021. Wasn't it out on Max the same
Exactly.
day?
That's exactly what I was going to say. So I don't know how they gauge these as successes, especially that was peak pandemic right there. Mm-hmm. That was their day and date releases, and I think that was one of their last big ones because Dune dropped very shortly after, if I remember right. Because I want to say this was around September, October, November timeframe around then. Might have even been way earlier. But yeah.
That was Doom Annihilation. Is that the one you're talking about?
Oh,
the Doom movie.
I haven't seen Doom. That's the other live action one, right?
Oh, I don't know. What you're talking? You said they dropped Doom right after.
Dune.
I was talking
Dune.
about Doom. I thought you said Doom. I thought you said Doom. My bad, dude.
No, I was talking about Dune, Dennis's movie. That movie was great. But yeah, whenever it comes to this, and then even like you have the Hitman Agent 47 movie, which was decent. Not the old school one, the one from the early 2000s. I liked the 2015 Hitman 47. That was a really solid, fun time. Then you have Detective Pikachu, right? If you haven't seen that, it's fun, right?
It's a fun little movie.
Yeah, it's not great. It didn't have me walking out like, oh, I need a sequel right now. It was fun. It was funny. It was wholesome. It fell exactly on par with Sonic. You know what I mean? I got exactly what I wanted. I kind of left a little bit surprised with what I got, and I had fun. But I wasn't clamoring necessarily for a sequel. Of course, I was for Sonic because I could watch 100 of those. The way that they do these and the way they go about them, I know whenever it comes to like the TV shows and adaptations, I'm going to leave that part up to you guys. I just kind of want to present the changing landscape and the way that it's consumed, because when it comes to video game adaptations, it's one of the finest lines you have to walk, right? People get invested in these lores, they get invested into the games because it's an actual hands-on experience, right? You control these characters, and even in some aspects like Fallout, you control kind of the narrative. You control this, you control that, you control the destiny of certain people. So you have your own image of a story, right? So whenever you go in there and you already kind of have an idea, you're a mega fan, you know a lot about it, it can be overwhelming, it can be underwhelming, or you can just leave extremely pissed off. So there's good ways of doing it, there's bad ways of doing it, and there's perfectly fine ways of doing it. It's really hard to kind of really mess it up as long as you have people that care, you have a script that's written well. It's just, yeah, like the Super Mario Bros. Movie, right? I wasn't the biggest fan of that. But on $100 million budget, pulling in $1.36 billion, that's a massive success. They did something right.
For sure.
Could care less about my opinion. You know what I mean? The money speaks for itself. It was fun, right? With all the talk, I think the hype kind of got to me, and I was expecting a little bit more. There's just some things, because we've all seen it, right?
Yeah, I saw it. I liked it. I mean, I had a good time with it. It's not incredible by any means, but like I think for me when I was seeing it, there were a lot of like kids in the theater, and I don't know if that played into it just because like when that Bowser starts singing that one song, like these kids are like dying laughing around me, like they're almost like crying, and like and it's hard for me not to laugh just because they're all like they're dying of laughter watching Bowser sing this song, and I'm like, dude, this is it's a fun weird experience. I had a good time with it, but it's definitely not like mind blowing by any means.
Yeah, and I know what you mean, because like I always got to remember, like, even though, like, I mean, whenever you see certain studios like Illumination, they make purely kids movies that families enjoy, right? Because I don't like that mantra, like Wish, right? There's been some more people I've talked to about that. Well, it's a kids movie. No, Disney is not a kids company anymore. Whenever you make a movie like that, right? Ideally, the people that are going to digest that movie are going to be kids, right? But the thing is those kids aren't 8 years old walking into the theater saying, "One ticket for me, please." They're there with the mom, the dad, the couple, whatever the dynamic is, right? The whole family is supposed to enjoy it, right? It's made for everybody, with the kids being the target audience. It's a family movie. So it goes the same thing with Super Mario Bros. My biggest complaint was the voice acting. Like, whenever Seth Rogen laughed as Donkey Kong, dude, it just tore me out of that world. I couldn't see it any differently. Like the bridge scene where they're doing
where they're fighting,
and then he looks down at him and laughs. Dude, I was almost in tears. That just took me right out of the realm of reality that they were trying to give me. It was so goofy. And then you have other exciting upcoming projects that we're going to talk about, like Fallout, Borderlands, which we touched base on in I believe it was our Thanksgiving-based episode with Eli Roth. And then The Last of Us Season 1, which they did plan a Season 2. I think they're trying to adapt the whole story.
Yeah, that's already announced.
Yeah. And I don't know of any other future video game adaptations that are possibly coming out.
Zelda, Legend of Zelda.
You're right.
Yeah, they're making. I think the director from Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is directing it, which is going to be interesting. And I think I could be wrong. I think it's live action, which is almost sacrilegious to me.
Oh, it is.
I don't know how. Is it? Oh God.
Yep.
That one's. I mean, that's a whole other episode. I can go on that for like 30 minutes, but that's kind of scary because that one is such a beloved property.
Yeah, I mean, so is Mario, but it's easier to do Mario. You know what I mean?
It's easier to do Mario just because you have the like kind of like the family kid component to it. I think Zelda is much more kind of it's the games are catered to everybody, but I think the stories are a little bit more intricate with Zelda.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting how they try to pull that off. I would not, for the life of me, try to take that film on as a director. I don't know how that dude signed on. I was like, yeah, I'll do it.
He heard Zelda signed it.
They're going to pick it outside his house.
I don't know how they're going to translate that. I'm trying to picture how that would look as a live action movie, and I just can't. Like, I think that's the issue with some of the video game movies for me, is that it's just hard to envision like what it's going to look like in reality, and then sometimes we see the end result of that, and it's just
well, I mean, Nintendo is very, out of all the gaming studios, I would say they are probably the most protective of their properties. Like, they're super strict in terms of how their properties are used. So I would imagine with Zelda, they already kind of have a template that they saw that they're like, this is really cool that people are going to get excited about. I just don't know what that is. I'm sure that they probably had template for Super Mario Bros. And Super Mario Bros. Isn't that difficult though. You just copy the animation from the games, just stay as faithful as you can to that animation, and
pretty much.
you're solid from there. Zelda, I have no freaking clue what they're trying to do with that, so that's going to be intriguing to see.
Yeah, that'd be very interesting. Which of these, and I want to pose this question to you guys. I just thought of this. This would be an interesting talk track. Which of these movies, out of any video game adaptation, were you looking forward to the most and left the most disappointed? Out of any video game adaptation.
Here, I have the list here. Hold on. You have one, Will?
I'm thinking about it right now. I mean, I could throw this out there. I'll throw out like what my favorite ones were.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're going to talk about Last of Us later. I don't want to get into that, but I can tell you what the worst ones I've seen are.
I'm trying to think of a specific one. If you got one, Will, go ahead. I'm like trying to like
worst.
I'll throw out my worst of, I guess, first, Alone in the Dark.
I have seen that.
Forgot
about that.
That movie was so badly done. I forget who's in it's Christian Slater and who's the blonde chick? I'm forgetting her name. But Christian Slater, and that's Uwe Boll, but he has this weird. I remember playing the game when I was a kid. The movie is it takes certain themes from the game, like a lot of those earlier movies. I mean, the thing with Uwe Boll is, we talked about this earlier, but he kind of just takes these properties. It's almost like he was able to buy the rights to make movies about them, but in name only, and kind of just veers off from that. Right. I mean, I guess we could say that a lot of other films do that as well, but his are notoriously known for just going completely into left field. Tara Reid is her name.
Oh, yeah.
Tara Reid.
She used to be such a star.
She was a star and really beautiful actress. And I just remember watching that movie and like wondering if she's like drunk the whole time that she was filming. Like, it's just really bad. Like, her acting is just really bad. Most of the acting isn't that good, but Christian Slater's got this weird, like, painted on, like, 5 o'clock shadow. He's got like the trench coat that the guy wears in the original game. It's just badly done. Yeah. I'd say Alone in the Dark is probably one of the worst ones I've seen. I agree with you guys about the Tomb Raider, like the Angelina Jolie movies. I love those movies. I think those movies are solid.
I thought they were fun, man.
Out of that era, I would say those are probably my favorite.
What
Resident
about the
Evil was
Vikander
okay.
one?
Which one?
While you're on the topic of Tomb Raider, what about the Alicia Vikander one? Did you see that?
That was 2013, right? The 2013 one.
Oh, I forgot about
that one. Was cool. Yeah, I like that one a lot. Honestly, dude, I think the Tomb Raider movies have been the most digestible for me.
It's hard to mess that up. You just gotta.
I think it's kind of. I just think they kind of found what makes the games exciting, and I just think it. Again, we talked about whether or not it translates easier into like the film format.
Yeah.
I just think Tomb Raider, they've kind of, I don't know. I think all those movies are decent.
Man, Uncharted wasn't on this list, but we all saw Uncharted, right?
Yeah, I saw it. And it's kind of like what Josh. Oh my God, what Will was saying. It's just one of those stories. I feel like it kind of like, it's more. I don't want to say grounded, because obviously there's a whole bunch of like sci-fi elements and fantasy elements to Uncharted. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, it's an action-packed, like, tomb robbing game. It's like, you explore tombs, and that's I think that's something that you can adapt pretty easily. I think that's why the Tomb Raider movies with Angelina Jolie were so successful, because you go back to basics. It's just you're exploring tombs, you throw some action scenes in there, and you have a good time. So it's not that difficult. And Uncharted, I'm a huge fan of the Uncharted games. I didn't like it as much as everyone else did, but it's a solid movie. Like, it's definitely, it could have been like way worse, 100%. I think Tom Holland was a good choice, and so like some of the action scenes are like right out of the game, especially that airplane cargo scene was pretty solid. Like, it's a fun little movie, but I think it goes back to what Will said. It's like, I think some of these movies are maybe a little bit more easier to adapt, just depending on what the actual story is. If you have a story that's a little bit more grounded, or something that you can actually, easily transition onto a film or a TV show, I think that it's you're going to be more successful doing that versus taking something like, I mean, the one I was like, the answer I was going to give was oh my god, what's the name of it? The big budget fantasy one. I feel stupid. I can't. It starts
Was it
with a W.
Warcraft?
Yeah,
Warcraft.
Warcraft.
Oh, okay.
Warcraft,
Yeah.
I saw it in theaters and I just wasn't. It had the
decent.
budget.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it looked fantastic, but the story was just boring. Like I was just like waiting to get out of there. I wasn't impressed with it at all. And I chose that one probably just because I had higher standards for it, because that property has so much lore and so many stories you can pull from, and it has, such history and depth to it. They could have really
Yeah.
gone anywhere with it, and it was kind of a basic story and it was really boring.
Just a popcorn flick, just action.
Yeah, I mean, like I
sci-fi.
could see why people liked it, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But I just kind of, there's definitely worse video game adaptations. Let me say that.
Yeah.
I've seen way worse, but like I remember the hype for that movie coming out and the trailer coming out, and everyone was like, this is the one that's gonna, change the whole landscape of video game adaptations. And I
And
walked out, I'm
Sonic
like,
came.
it's the same thing. Sonic. Yeah, so I would probably say, Warcraft. I think that one was
Yeah.
just kind of, I rode, maybe I was just riding that hype train too, where I'm like, yeah, this one's going to be different, and it just kind of fell short for me. But it's hard, man.
Yeah.
And I guess to talk about the changing landscape, it's hard to adapt some of these things. Will and I were talking about just, the game time for some of these games, like you're playing like 40, 60 hours, sometimes
Yep.
hundreds of hours for a story. You know what I mean? You have cutscenes that sometimes can last 20 minutes, 30 minutes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Especially those Kojima games.
Oh, yeah.
It's difficult to translate that into a 2-hour movie. And I think something that we've been seeing recently is the change towards TV adaptations, because obviously TV has become a lot more cinematic over the past few years. So we've seen stuff like Halo, which I didn't like at all. Aesthetically, it looked cool, like you saw Master Chief, kicking ass, but that show was trash in my opinion. You have Halo, you have Last of Us, you have, I think they just did Twisted Metal. I haven't seen it.
Oh, yeah, I
There's a
need to watch that. I heard it was
No,
good.
they did do that. Yeah.
Is it good?
I heard it was good.
Fallout is a TV show. Like it's interesting that they're kind of taking some of these games and saying, you know what, it might actually benefit taking our time and telling the story, because when you're actually playing the game,
It takes time.
you're invested. Yeah, you're invested for several hours. And I think that honestly, I think that's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah.
You're going to get a lot more, character build up, a lot more time to take the story. And some of these games on this list here, they just, the reason the film adaptations weren't that good is just because they're rushed.
Yeah.
Resident Evil, like you said, Chase, it said fuck you to the story halfway through the first movie, and it's just like, yeah, we'll plant seeds here of what Resident Evil is, but it's not Resident Evil. You need time to take the story, and what's interesting enough is a lot of video games just have fantastic stories that honestly sometimes surpass a lot of films. Like there's like
sure.
a lot of the Kojima stuff is like freaking fantastic. But you need time to take that story, and it could take sometimes several installments of a game or several hundred hours of a game, depending which one you're playing. So I appreciate the fact that they are kind of maybe transitioning towards TV and understanding and streaming and saying, you know what, that we need to take time to tell these stories as effectively as possible, and actually getting some of the video game creators involved with the adaptations themselves. Because and we're probably going to get into Last of Us here in a little bit, but I think that's why Last of Us was so successful. You had the actual writer/director of the first one, just heavily involved in terms of like the screenwriting. I think he directed an episode or two. So he already has like a really solid sense of what the world is, what it's supposed to be, how it should translate onto film, what would work, what wouldn't, and he's having those conversations with the co-creator of the show. So TV is probably the way to go, in my opinion. I don't know what you guys think, but I think at this point, with how many bombs we've had of these video game adaptations, I think TV is probably the safest bet.
I think certain ones, I mean, with certain games, you could make them into movies depending on the premise and how expansive they are. Like we mentioned this before. I think with some of these games, like their universes and their worlds are so expansive. It's like you said, Gabe. It's hard to condense that into a runtime of like an hour and a half in some cases, even 2 hours. I don't think that's enough to do some games justice. And that's part of the point. Like, you play some of these games, you're investing at least anywhere from like 48 to sometimes 60 plus hours, just for campaigns, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's gratification that comes with that for investing that kind of time because you get invested in the story and there's a payoff usually. It's hard to take that and kind of translate that into a movie where it's like an hour and a half runtime. It's like, okay, well, we got to condense these 60 hours into an hour and a half, but somehow have the same type of payoff for an audience. I just think that's hard to do. The TV format, I think, is definitely the way to go. We'll talk about Last of Us, but yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't really think about that way because, TV isn't as lucrative anymore. That goes back to like our state of cinema, streaming, everything we've already talked about. We don't need to go down that again. But like with how much has got to go into it, the production value, with like what you can see in Fallout, with what you can see, Borderlands is gonna have to be crazy. It has to be. It can't just look like how we look right now and then filmed and then put on a screen. You know what I mean? It has to have that outline. It has to be Borderlands, And then something I wanted to pose to you guys is, as well as we go deeper down that rabbit hole, what is something that you've always thought that was meant to be adapted and hasn't been adapted yet? Like, even if it's just something personal to you. I know Gabe's already gotten his. He wanted Last of Us bad.
Yeah, I got it after several years. I'm trying to think if there's another one though.
Yeah, I wanted to pose this to you guys. Then, have you guys ever played a game called Metro?
Metro, Metro a while back. There's a few installments now.
It's similar to Fallout in a sense, right? It has like horror elements in it as well.
Yeah. Metro it's about where everybody thinks they have to live underground because it was a book by Dimitri something. He wrote 2033, Last Light, and then Exodus were the books. They actually had numbered years. But long story short, these people think that they're the last people essentially in the world. And like to your point, like all these things get radiated out there in the world, but it's like a horror survival game. It's not really horror, more thriller, right? But it's a survival game. And so they think that they're the last people in this world. So every time you go out there, you have a time limit and stuff like that to go and navigate. And I just think that could be a super raunchy one. They announced it. That's why it made me think of it, because there's a bunch of...
Oh, is it being done?
There hasn't been an update in 2 years, but I just found it on the list that it was announced. Like Duke Nukem Forever was announced as well. That would be fun.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God. That would be the goofiest movie to ever be created. Yeah. That'd have to be done by Troma.
I think
some of these movies get announced and then they get into production hell and you don't hear about them for like years and years.
Especially with the video game adaptations, like they just stay in production hell.
I remember hearing about the Borderlands movie years ago, and I was like, "Oh, that's going to be interesting." I wonder who they're going to get.
Wasn't Gore Verbinski supposed to do it or something, or was that BioShock? I think that was BioShock.
It might have been BioShock. I don't know if they ever talked about a director for Borderlands. I just remember hearing about it being announced. But again, here we are. Look, it's years later, and now we're finally getting an update on it.
I would definitely say mine is BioShock, just because it's that game BioShock is freaking incredible. BioShock Infinite and the first one are just the twist at the end are freaking incredible, and just the world and the lore. It's just super fucking awesome to kind of invest yourself in. And the other ones I'm getting them. Ghost of Tsushima's coming out apparently. I think the director John Wick's working on that one. Which is going to be freaking outstanding because it's like, dope. The samurai freaking, oh dude, it's going to be so dope.
That'd be awesome.
That's probably one of the best games I've played in the last like 5 or 6 years.
Dude, I literally like 99% completion on that game. Like literally, I have some like scrolls to find, but I've done like every other. Yeah,
you can't let that 1% defeat you.
I know, right? And then the other one was, I think they're doing it as well. God of War, the recent God of War releases, the 2018, and I think there was one last year, or I don't know if it was this year or last year, but those have freaking incredible stories, man. Super in-depth, emotional stories that I feel can translate pretty well into TV or film. I don't know if those two are film or TV. But we'll see. I wouldn't mind if it's either, to be honest. Yeah.
God of War is one of my favorite franchises of all time. I'm still mad that they announced a Sly Cooper movie and released a trailer, and it never came out.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Remember, because they were doing like Heavenly Sword, and remember, to your point, Will, by that same studio that was doing those animated Sony movies, they were supposed to do a Borderlands one. Then it became Eli Roth's live-action Borderlands. Okay. So yeah,
I didn't even know it was supposed to be animated. I thought it was always going to be live action for Borderlands.
It could have been. I just remember Heavenly Sword was announced. It got released. I don't think it did well theatrically, which it was really just the cutscenes with some added, you know what I mean, updated everything. And it was good. Heavenly Sword is one of my favorite stories out of that era of, I don't know if it was a launch title for PS3 by Ninja Theory, I believe. That's now owned by Xbox. And it was a great game. Great cinematography, great CGI for the time. And then you really cared. I think her name's Nariko. You really cared about her. But yeah, God of War, actually, that's probably a surprising fact. That growing up alongside MK1 was my favorite franchise. And I was so pissed when they announced a 2018 one because I thought it ended so beautifully, you know, for God of War 3. But if they adapt this new age one or even just give it, that could be one of the most epically done things of all time. If you go God of War 1, 2, 3, the story of vengeance, and then more or less a story of redemption to a degree, you know, I think that could be one of the most cohesive video game adaptation sagas of all time. Outside,
do you like 2018 or envisioned Kratos or the original more?
More. I just love full wrath. Everything. If a bunny gets in Kratos' face, it is not safe. So I love that. I just love that about Kratos.
2018, dude, is just freaking outstanding.
It's more emotional, I feel like, you know.
It's I think that's what it is. I mean, I love them all. I've played them all, and multiple times I've played them all, and they're all great games. But 2018, for some reason, did something to me that it's just a freaking beautiful game to look at, and the story is just like you said. It's a lot more emotional, a lot more character development in it. These movies, and I think that's what makes it harder too to adapt, is because a lot of these video games are so cinematic now, right? Like they have like their own like stories, their own characters. Like it's hard for you to picture someone playing that character just because they already look so real, and you have like incredible voice actors that are pretty much. I mean, at this point, they're using that, you know, that dot technology, the motion capture. They are acting. You know what I mean? Yeah, they're acting on a stage, and it's like. It's hard to, you know, take something like that and then saying like, yeah, we're going to do a movie or a show, and you have a different actor, it's just a lot more difficult to kind of make that transition.
Well, to piggyback off of that too, like with Ghosts of Tsushima, for example, they took a lot of heavy inspiration from like old school samurai movies, like Kurosawa, in particular. And that's mentioned in like the making of, like I've seen some of the behind the scenes of that, and they go into like the types of films that they watched, like the scenes that they looked at. So a lot of that game is heavily modeled after classic cinema, right? In terms of Japanese samurai movies. So it's funny that it's like now we're going to make a movie of a game that was inspired heavily by movies.
From movies.
Yeah, it's weird because it's like full circle, but I'm just curious how that, you know, it's always one of those things where you wonder like how well they're going to be able to pull it off. But I mean, I have faith in the John Wick director, obviously. John Wick.
Chad. What was Chad? I forget his name all the time.
Chad Stahelski, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
His last name, but
I mean, his work on the John Wick movies have been fantastic, and the stunt work and all that stuff. He seems to really care about the stunt work and the action, and I think he was talking about going back and watching some of those classic Japanese films that they looked at. So, like, I think he's super excited about the project too, just because it does have like kind of cinematic roots to it. And yeah, when you play it, man, it's just interesting. Like you see like the samurai. Like when you're in a fight, you get that like kind of like the camera. It looks like those old school Kurosawa or Japanese cinematic movies. You know what I mean? Like it has like Western vibes too, where they have like, you know, their hand on the sword. It's like pulling out a little bit. It's so well done. It's super well
slow
done.
Draw.
Yeah, it's super cool to watch. But I mean, so and we can transition into like our favorites, which I mean, we kind of like dropped hints already throughout this podcast about what our favorites are. I don't know what Chase is gonna say. Let's start with you, man, because I know you're excited to talk about all things your blue little friend.
My blue little friend. Yeah, I'm pretty well known around the parts for how obsessed I am with Sonic. Yeah, I just, you know, there's things like, and one thing we didn't touch on, and this will correlate to like that question, is like Five Nights at Freddy's, right? There are some people are going to trash talk. Like there's just some people that went and casually saw that movie and didn't like it, right? And there's even people that are buying the 4K and be like, well, what's this about? Well, you might not want to buy that movie out of just pure curiosity. Stream it first. It's on Peacock. Stream it. and then check it out, right? Because that's a movie just like Sonic that is made for fans. I do think that Sonic got a little bit more broad to reach all new target audiences. You know, now I see kids walking around with like Sonic pajamas in stores and stuff like that I never remember seeing growing up. You know what I mean? So they're capturing a new age generation and audience with these movies, just like the Super Mario Bros. Did. But then with Five Nights at Freddy's, that targeted specifically, like you had to know about some of that lore. That movie went wildly deep for no reason. But the people that like that stuff, like we've seen in the Discord server, they were mega fans of it. You know, they were just super excited for it. They liked it, enjoyed the whole ride. I didn't. You know, it's probably one of my least favorite movies I've seen this year. But again, I'm not a fan of it. So now you jump to Sonic the Hedgehog 2. If you haven't seen it, which shame on you if you haven't seen it at this point. So there's just a specific part. There's been very few times, and I am proud to admit this, whenever I've cried happy tears during a movie. And there's a part, like the last 20 minutes, it just got me by surprise. They held it to their chest extremely well. And just playing Sonic, like that was one of the first games I ever played, and how near and dear it is to me. I just was overwhelmed with joy. I was like, oh my God, they did that. Oh my God, I can't believe they did that. And I was just over the moon. I went back and saw it the next day. I think I saw it a total at least 3 times. I could have seen it 4 or 5 times in theaters. And then I definitely bought that nice Sega Genesis box art looking steelbook. Immaculate 4K transfer. It's a great movie. I think, if we're being realistic, like I gave it a 5 out of 5 every rewatch, and that's just sentimental rating.
Yeah,
but it does. Yeah, it has pacing issues for sure. And during the second act, it really, really kind of like when you're playing Sonic and you go to do a turn the other way and do a 180, it skirts itself with the wedding scene for sure. I do believe they could have cut that. You know, maybe did something a little bit different. But other than that, I find that to be one of the most well-made non-TV shows, because I still need to watch The Last of Us. I need to see all these other things that are coming out, because there's just so many on the horizon right now. And Sonic 3 just started production, slated for next year, so I'm stoked. And I really hope Jim Carrey comes back, because if you haven't seen those, I think that is one of the things that could have also made or break the movie, was getting Jim Carrey as Eggman was one of the best things they did. Like, that was just absolute insanity how well he killed that role. Perfect casting. I was kind of upset they didn't get a bigger fellow for that, but I'm a massive Jim Carrey fan. So once I saw the first one, especially the second one, I couldn't imagine anybody else being in the role at this point. So I'm super excited for the future of that franchise. Hopefully it lives up on the third one, because, you know, there's sometimes like it has to be one of the best improvements from first to sequel I've seen in this realm that we're talking about. Just a lot of fun. Not much I would improve on outside of the pacing. And the first one I couldn't have imagined it going any differently for trying to set up a world. But yeah, that one's my favorite one outside of the old school Mortal Kombats. I love those. Even Annihilation. They're just fun, practical effects driven, just fun fests, you know?
Yeah.
And then I also want to throw this out there. And this is going to take you guys by surprise just because I have it pulled up right here. I actually like the Assassin's Creed movie. That movie, I
have not seen it yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet either.
Because everyone just trashed it so badly, and I actually do really love Assassin's Creed. I think it has like an incredible story to it.
Yeah.
So when a whole bunch of Assassin's Creed fans were like, "This is trash," I just kind of gravitated away from it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm glad to hear that it's Michael whatever's in it, right?
Fassbender, right?
Yeah,
I thought it was
a lot of good names in that movie. I think they had Jeremy Irons was in it. It had like freaking what's that French actress from Inception and Dark Knight Rises?
I know who you're talking about.
Marion Cotillard. Yeah, she's in it too. I think like they had some like fantastic actors in it.
Yeah.
But according to the fans, it just wasn't. It wasn't that great. But I mean, I'm glad to hear that you liked it.
Yeah, like I just don't get what. Like, because I used to be, I've kind of fallen off. I don't like the newer Assassin's Creeds that much, because I liked Assassin's Creed for the 15, 30-hour experiences they were. Then you get Odyssey and Valhalla, that's 100-plus hour investment. And I just
love those so much, though.
I just couldn't get into that. Like, I don't like super long games that aren't like Fallout, where I can pace myself in that aspect, you know? Because sometimes I just want to go through a good Assassin's Creed story. So this one, I just want to throw out there, like, I mean, is it like a 9 or a 10 out of 10? No. Leaving, it was about a 7 out of 10. There's some weird parts, but it stays faithful to the core fundamentals of everything. The Spanish Inquisition was a solidly amazing aspect or event and timeline to go through. The way that they did it, and I think where people got rubbed wrong, is the animus aspect of it is completely different. It's almost like a mesh of, I like to call it like Portal meets Assassin's Creed, how it kind of does itself. But that's why I liked it. Like this fell in that category where the creative freedom is what I wanted, right? Because we have so many Assassin's Creed games where the aspect of the animus and everything is so much the same. I really respected them doing something different, and financially, it didn't pay off for them, but I wish this movie got a little bit more love than it did, because Michael Fassbender absolutely just
he's a fantastic actor. He's just in everything he's in.
Oh my god, yeah, he just crushed it. Like for his performance alone, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you haven't seen it and you are only going based off what other people say, it's short. Give it a shot. You know, dude, you can get the 4K for like $6.
Yeah, it's like I think it was $5 on sale on freaking Black Friday.
Yeah, every day. I think I've given it away like 3 different times for giveaways just because of the ease of purchase and accessibility.
And it's like you said, like it's you know, maybe that's the tough part too, right? It's like there are some video game adaptations where maybe you want to take more liberty, like kind of as a filmmaker to do something different while staying faithful to it. So, you know, no matter what the adaptation is, it's never going to pay off for everybody. Like I don't think that there is any adaptation where it's like everyone loved it. It's like, you know, even I think with The Last of Us, some people were like, yeah, I didn't like it. I think that one just has the most, I think, general consensus as being probably one of the best adaptations of all time. But like I mean, I've talked to people on the server and Reddit were like, yeah, I didn't like it compared to the game. And I'm talking about like hardcore fanatics of the game that just didn't like it. So you're never going to please everyone. Yeah. So, I mean, I'll probably check it out at some point. I almost picked it up. It was on my, but I was like, I was like, I'm good. But I'll probably check that one out. And you did. I didn't want to, because you're talking about Sonic. You shamed me into watching it because I had that day coming off work where I was like, I'm just gonna binge through a bunch of movies. I'm like, I'm gonna watch like 6 or 7 movies.
Yeah.
And you're like, Sonic's gonna be one of those, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, dude, I'll watch Sonic. And you know what? It's a fun movie. I actually liked it a lot more than I thought I would. It's not, you know, it's not like it's not. If it's not like a cinephile's dream, obviously.
Oh, for sure.
It's just like a fun little popcorn film, and there's a lot of one-liners in that movie that like with like modern like pop cultural references that made me laugh.
Yeah.
And then the second one when I was watching, because I watched them back to back, the second one with I think I was texting you. I was like, I had no idea that Idris Elba was fucking Knuckles.
Yeah.
Because that was like I liked Sonic growing up. I played it a lot when I was growing up, but I wasn't like invested in the world. Like whenever a new Sonic game came out, I'd play it, but I wasn't like into the lore or anything like that. And I always liked playing as Knuckles growing up. So like when I was like, oh, cool, Knuckles is in this. And then I heard the voice. I'm like, is that fucking Idris Elba? And I like Googled it during the movie. I'm like, holy shit. And he was hilarious as Knuckles.
He was
like, great. Just like the drywall, like flat humor that like, you know, he doesn't understand half the shit that people are talking about. It's fantastic. I actually, the second one was, I actually like the second one more, I think, than the first one.
It's way better in every way.
Yeah, so it's a fun, and then Tails, Tails is like is gonna sound, he's fucking adorable, bro.
Yeah,
like freaking adorable character, man. When he's on screen, I'm like, oh my god, like,
don't let anything happen to it. Yeah,
I'm like, don't, please, yeah. But they're fun movies, man.
Yeah,
they're fun movies. I had a fun. They're not perfect by any means.
Oh, for sure.
But I'll probably, surprisingly enough, like the third one, I'll probably watch it in theaters when it comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're fun movies. I think that it's kind of like how I felt with Super Mario Bros. Where we were talking about it. Like it's like, you know, I walked out of the movie. It was a fun time. Like if they make a Super Mario sequel, I'll probably go watch it.
Oh, it's already been announced.
Oh, I'm sure when you make $3 billion, it's a no-brainer. But yeah, Sonic was solid, man.
Yeah,
I appreciate the recommendation just because, I mean, when it came out, I mean, it had all that crap with the animation, and I'm like, oh, dude, if you guys can't nail the animation of Sonic, like, you know, I'm thinking like the story you probably butchered 100%. Yeah. So, but it was fun. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Well, you've seen
it,
right?
What your hot dog
I've
means.
seen the first one.
Oh, the hot dog Sonic on Discord that's been there for a couple years now. Yeah.
Did you like it, Will?
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, I pretty much have the same thoughts as that. I mean, it's like Mario. I think there's certain movies I go into like not expecting them to be like you said. It's not like peak cinema or like a cinematic masterpiece. It's just it's a fun video game adaptation, and it's not intended to be serious. And I don't go in there expecting it to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of the games like you are, Chase. But I mean, I was still able to understand some of the references. You know, playing Sonic as a kid, obviously. So yeah, I mean, it's a fun movie. Like I felt the same way about the Mario Brothers movie. It's fun. I mean, that's it. I was entertained. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't own the Mario Brothers movie. I'm not gonna go out of my way to buy it. But yeah, I mean, will I see the sequel? Maybe, maybe not. You know, with those kind of things, it just depends. Like if it's getting good reviews, if it gets a lot of buzz, you know, I'll check it out like I did with Mario.
Mm-hmm.
But I watched Sonic after hearing you talk about it, and yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. You know, for what it was, it was decent. I think that's the thing with a lot of these movies too. Like, obviously, it's subjective, but I think you have to go into it with certain intentions of what your expectations should be.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
and I also think it depends on the intentions behind the people making it. I think you can approach some of these movies with the idea of just making it fun and making it digestible and presentable to a general audience and still have things in there that are going to make people who played the games happy. Obviously, like you said, Gabe, you're not going to please everybody. I just think with certain properties, it's easier to do that, right? Like Mario is a little more straightforward. It's more acceptable. It's appealing to a wider range of people that have grew up with the games and played the games, or then now their kids are playing the games. Whereas something with like Last of Us, obviously that's a lot more of a hard hitting, emotional, like grounded, you know, story about survival. So I just think it depends on the type of game you're trying to adapt and whether or not you know how to go about that and how to make that work. And sometimes that can be tricky, as we've seen. But yeah, Sonic was fun. Mario was fun. I want to. This is like a random thought. The Tomb Raider movie. I think I said 2013. That movie actually came out
2018,
It
right?
it was
18,
later.
16.
Yeah, it was like 5 years later. It was 2018. I don't know why I said 13. I just wanted to
Because that's
correct
when
that.
the reboot came out. The game reboot came out. I'm almost pretty sure.
Yeah, okay. See,
Oh
that's what I'm thinking of.
That
Then.
was
Okay.
solid. I love the freaking reboot of that game,
But
dude.
And that's pretty much what it is.
not the
adapted.
backtrack, but
Yeah.
They adapted.
No, they're
that.
good. I always keep forgetting to, yeah, special shout out to those, like the Alicia Vikander ones, the Angelina Jolie ones. They're all fun. I think that's the one where like you can go and watch if you're a fan of it, or even if you like Uncharted and you were kind of a little bit upset with the movie. Like I found it decent. Go and watch those Tomb Raider movies. The Alicia Vikander one pretty much adapts that 2013 story. I would say like 60-70% of the way, at least in the raw.
And even some of the like artwork too, with like her jumping across the plane and stuff like that. Like, just they took stuff straight out of the game, which I had fun with that movie.
Yeah, it was good. It didn't blow me away like certain shots did, like what you were saying, like whoa, you know. But as a whole, the package, it's kind of like the plane scene in Uncharted. You know, cool.
Yeah,
but you advertise the hell out of that. You know,
yeah, dude, that's the whole trailer. It was like the first trailer that came out, just him falling out of the plane the whole time.
Yeah, it's wild. Okay, so what's your guys's? Are you all right?
We already talked about it, dude. I mean, like,
we already mentioned it. We're in the same boat.
The steelbook here, it's a little bit hard to see. Let me see if I can get it close.
Yeah, good. There you go. There
nice
you go.
shiny reflection.
This is the last.
Get a little money shot.
Fnac steelbook that I was kind of pissed. I was like waiting for it to come out domestically. I was like, all right, like they're gonna release this domestically, and then sure enough, like a week before it came out, I'm like, okay, maybe not.
FOMO
I had
got
to.
You.
Yeah, dude, it got me, bro. Because I mean, it's a nice steelbook. But The Last of Us, it's a game I've been passionate about. You guys have heard me talk about it. It's probably my favorite video game of all time, just because the story when I first played it just hit me so freaking hard. As soon as the game ended and cut to black, I was just like literally, I think I was sitting there for like a good hour, just like reading about it and processing it, and it's such a morally ambiguous ending. Like it's like the reason I love it so much is like people debate that game's ending even to this day. Like what I'm not going to get into spoilers, but there's a decision a character makes, and there's a camp of people saying I would have done the exact same thing he did, and there's a camp of people saying no, like that's really fucked up. Like how could you support that? And it's that that game came out I think 10 years ago, maybe. And people still debate it to this day, man. And it's such a really impactful story that just like resonated with me. So I was always hesitant about it kind of transitioning to a video game adaptation. I know for a second they were talking about it being a movie with, I think, Josh Brolin. I don't know if this was like more fan kind of rumors, but like Josh Brolin
I can
as
see
like
that.
Joel, and I think the girl from Game of Thrones that played Arya Stark as Ellie. I think they were
Oh,
in
okay.
talks to do the movie, and then it kind of went into kind of production hell where
Mm.
I think the video game creator, he actually wrote a screenplay for like a movie, a tentative screenplay, and it just kind of like, people, I say, forgot about it. They just kind of took on other projects and such, and he just kind of shelved it. But the creator of the game, I don't know if you guys saw Chernobyl. Did you guys check that out on HBO?
I've been meaning
Yeah,
to.
we
I
did.
haven't seen that.
Dude, it's
Oh, I
so
thought you saw it,
freaking
Chase.
incredible,
Mm-mm.
man. Honestly, for
Yeah.
one
I
of the
actually have
best
the 4K.
freaking shows. Yeah, I bought the 4K. It's freaking fantastic, dude. So Craig Mason is his name. So he's the one who actually did Chernobyl. He played Last of Us, and he was like, he had kind of the same impact I was talking about, where he's like, this is like one of the best stories I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So he reached out to PlayStation, and Neil Druckmann, who's the director and the writer of the first game, he was like, we need to adapt this. Like, this is like an incredible story. So it's just slowly transitioned, to a mini series, or not a mini series, like I guess a season 1 from there. And I freaking loved it, dude. The casting was on point. Pedro Pascal, and you got Bella Ramsey, a lot of other good supporting actors. And it's so faithful to the freaking game. It takes some creative liberties where it's like, some kind of background stuff that they actually make like a full episode about, but it hits hard. I think that they did a great job with the creative liberties they did take, but I would say like 90% of it is pretty much tit for tat. It's the game. Like there's even like dialogue from the game that just like, they pulled straight out of the game and put it in the show.
I was gonna say they don't veer too far off course from the game. It's actually pretty
Mm-mm.
like throughout. It's pretty like neck and neck with
Yeah.
all the major. I guess we could say the major plot points at least, right? Like the major
Yeah.
events in the game are included.
And dude, I even when I knew what was happening, because I played the first game like freaking 6 times already. Like I've been in that game so many times, and like I already
Mm.
knew what each plot point was, and I still it hit differently seeing some of these actors take on these roles. Like I still got emotional with some of the scenes. Like some of it, like Bella Ramsey, honestly, like I don't know if she won I think she won some awards for this role. I could be wrong, but she did a great job playing Ellie, man. And they ended it just like the game did. You get this super morally ambiguous ending, and it just cuts to black, and people are like, it was fun seeing that conversation reemerge again, because it happened back in 2013 when the game came out, and then all the people that hadn't played the game, watching the show, and then I was like waiting for that last episode because I knew that everyone was just going to debate it, and sure enough, you go on forums and stuff online, everyone's like, what the fuck, and just talking about it. It was so much fun, dude. I was 100% pleased with the adaptation. I wouldn't change anything about it. It's probably, at least to me, it's the most accurate, the most honest, the most genuine video game adaptation, and that's probably because they had the the writer and the director of the game heavily invested in it. So I don't know. What were your thoughts about it, Will?
Let me pose this to you, and then I want you to answer the same thing, Will, afterwards.
Yeah,
If you
sure.
could only take what's out right now, season 1 or the game, you could only play one or do one, what would you
That's
choose?
fucking tough, dude.
Yep.
That's a horrible question to ask me. So you're saying like the season 1 of the
just
show,
Season 1
or
of the
just
show
game?
or the
Not-
game.
Yeah, or the first game.
I mean,
Because the
nostalgia's
one for
always
one.
gonna hit, dude.
So you're gonna
I
go
mean,
for
like
the
it's
game.
always gonna be the game, just because I mean that's the the
Okay.
source material, and that's
For
what
sure.
I've been
Yeah, you wouldn't
always
have the show
passionate
without
about.
the game, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
100%.
in
I
that
mean,
aspect, I meant for like, because the show you could go through a lot quicker than the game. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So if you could only
Right.
have one or replay the game, is kind of what I was saying. Like if it's that faithful and stuff like that, and you could pretty much take
Mhm.
one for one, even if people aren't gamers, they could dig into this, have a fun ride, everything like that. So that's exciting to hear. Probably actually finish the game now.
Yeah, I'd say like obviously I'm gonna say, because I'm of emotional and nostalgia, like you said with Sonic, I'm always gonna take the game. But I would say like for someone who's like I don't know which one I want to do. Like, honestly, and that's the great part about this adaptation. Like, if someone said like they wanted to watch the show first, go ahead. Like, it's that good. Like, and usually I'd say play the game first, but the adaptation is just so freaking good that I wouldn't mind, start having people start with the show and then play the game afterwards, because that's what a lot of people did recently. They saw the show, and then I think the sales like went on a massive uptick for the first installment of the game. But yeah,
that's crazy.
I love it, dude. Well, I mean, I don't know if you had any other thoughts about it. I know you enjoyed it too.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, it's not my favorite game of all time, but it's definitely up there. I'd say probably in my top 5. I remember playing the game and thinking like, wow, this is better than a movie. I mean, the intricate way in which they handled the story, and like how detailed it was, and how detailed the world was, and the character interactions and the turmoil that you have to deal with, it was just, from what I remember at the time, dude, it was just on another level in terms of how much engagement you actually had playing something like that. And I remember like talking to friends about it, like, this is insane. Like, and then obviously with the sequel that they announced, it just, I remember the excitement that I had, when I heard that at the time. But as far as adaptations go, yeah, it's definitely, I think, technically and just all around the most well done that I've ever seen. And just a shining example of what you could do with a mini series or a TV format, right? With these kinds of stories. You touched pretty much on a lot of the stuff that I was thinking, Gabe. I want to touch a little more on the technical aspect, but before that, I will say, as far as like acting and the character work, I think his name is Nick Offerman from Parks and Rec. He plays
dude,
Bill.
yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
that fucking just floored me.
Destroyed
Like,
me.
his whole,
I cried.
it was, I don't want to get into it because I'm gonna get emotional. I can't talk about it for some reason still. But yeah, he just, I mean, everybody's great in it. Pedro Pascal is great in it. Everyone's fantastic. But yeah, his performance in particular, just that whole arc, I loved every scene that he was in. It was amazing to fucking watch him. But I mean, technically, like, even the way they did the VFX, I watched a lot of behind the scenes about some of the episodes, especially like the bigger shots that they had of the city here and there when they're walking around in that world.
Yeah.
They just went about it in a way that was just technically so impressive. Like the way they captured everything, the effects were not like, it wasn't noticeable. Like, everything looked incredibly well done. The set design was fantastic. Even the creature effects, like the special effects,
clickers.
makeup, the clickers, all that stuff was fantastic. And then even the people that are infected, they did, and those scenes, by the way, I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, but when the game was kind of known for that. It's like a survival drama thriller first and foremost, but it had those horror elements. And, being more of a horror fan, I appreciated that. But what I loved about it is like, damn, this is like scarier than like any Resident Evil game I've ever played, just because you have the story and the character work there. We talk about this all the time, but I mean, it really does make so much more of an impact. But they just found, I mean, again, we talked about transitioning from a game into a movie or a TV format, and they just found a way to do that without losing a lot of the impact that you would get playing the game, right? You still have that impact watching the show, and they just found a way to they found that balance, right? Without having to throw in everything in the game, because obviously for timing reasons and restraints, they couldn't do that. But yeah, technically, it's such a well done show as well.
Yeah.
So
practical effects are friggin' incredible.
They were awesome. So everybody who worked on it, I mean, HBO did a fantastic job, and they usually do really, really, really well. I'm not a fan of everything HBO's done, but it was, definitely my favorite adaptation thus far. We'll see what happens with Borderlands, because that is one of my favorite games, and I don't know if we want to talk about that and what our expectations are for that, but
yeah, any upcoming release I'm down to talk about.
Borderlands is one of those things where it's like, I don't know, I'm unsure.
It has to come down to the art.
As I said before, well, it's hard for me to envision that. Like, how are they going to translate that? Like Last of Us works, I think, because of the game to begin with is so grounded.
Yeah.
And for me, like, to be able to digest that, like, it has to have some kind of facilitated, grounded story, right, in order to work. Or at least, like with Borderlands, I mean, it's a
It's chaos.
It's a loot and shoot, right? Like, or a shoot and loot, whatever they call those games,
Loot and
right?
shooter.
It's
Yeah,
looter and shooter.
am I saying
yeah.
it right? Fuck, I'm getting old, man.
I don't know, dude. I don't even remember how to say it, but it's just it's hard for me to
Looter shooter.
envision
Got it.
looter shooter. It's hard for me to envision how they're going to translate that to on screen, you know. And part of the fun of like with Last of Us, it's single player, right? So you have time to absorb everything that's happening around you. You can kind of zone in and disappear, you know, for a couple days and just get lost in the game. And you can do that with the show because the show finds a way to translate that intimacy, you know, into your experience watching the show, right? And watching the characters on screen. Whereas with Borderlands, I don't know. Borderlands is just so much more. Again, I think I have a problem with like when the worlds are just so much more expansive. It's like, okay, well, how are they going to contain this
into a movie?
If it's a movie to like an hour and a half, even if it's 2 hours, like how are they going to do that? I mean, you can't make it a 3.5 hour movie about Borderlands. I just don't think that's going to work.
Yeah, maybe
So
2.5 pushing it, but that's relying a lot on the fan base.
Right.
Yeah. It's Eli Roth directing it, right?
Yeah,
I believe so.
Who doesn't, at least to me, I mean, you guys can point out a title of his, but like, I don't feel like he has a lot of experience with like, you know, like kind of like visual effects and like, you know, the stuff like more visual kind of stuff. Like he's always kind of been more of a, I don't want to say grounded because obviously some of the premises are crazy for some of his movies, but kind of like more grounded stuff where it's like not CGI heavy,
more
it's
practical.
like visual effects
he's
heavy.
more
practical.
Yeah, he's more practical, like in camera, like on the day kind of stuff, like those kind of gags, as opposed to like, you know, a big VFX like Marvel type. Not that this is going to be like a Marvel movie, but in terms of the scale of the VFX and the world that they're building, I mean, yeah, it's definitely a different ballpark for him. So yeah, I'm curious to see how he tackles that, but we'll see. I don't know. What do you guys think?
No, I pretty much the same thing.
Oh, go ahead, Chase.
Yeah, I really don't have anything to add on to that. Like, they have to find some way to get the cell shading down. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, if it's not that, then it's gonna look really weird. Really weird. You know, like trying to buy into a Borderlands universe where you don't have the heavy outlines and cell shading. That's really it. I can see them as long as it's goofy. It doesn't take itself seriously in any way. I mean, they've got Jack Black as Claptrap already, so I'm in. You know, they've got me a little bit of the way there. I just need to see a trailer, and that'll be one of the few trailers I check out.
It's kind of game that I feel like would work better as like an animated movie. I just like, because of the art style, it's kind of already in that realm for me, and it's just, and again, this is a personal thing. It's like the inability to separate myself from my perception of what the game is and try to view the film any differently. Like, it's going to be hard for me to do that, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, maybe they'll come out with something that'll find a way to make it work and blow me away. I don't know, but
dude, $10 though that it doesn't have that art style that you're talking about, Chase. I can completely see the teaser's going to come out and it's going to be just normal looking kind of, you know,
heavy
people
makeup
with like heavy CGI, like, but like they're not going to go all out with like the outlines and all that stuff. I don't see that happening. I could be wrong,
man. I don't know. I don't know. That'll probably take me out of it for me. You know what I mean?
It's like another Sonic situation. It's like if you can't get the visual aesthetics, or if you got Sonic looking like a freaking like radioactive, whatever the fuck that was. Like, I don't know who okayed. Like, that's mind blowing that they okayed that. That's mind boggling that they okayed.
They had to have done that for the press. They had to have. There's no way they said that looks good, dude. There's no way.
Someone did. Someone drew that, and they took their time animating the whole film with him in it. Like, someone said that was okay, or multiple people said that was okay. Like, that's Sega. It's mind boggling. I'm wondering if even Sega was like, yeah, do that. Like, it's I don't know.
They said, say less, release the trailer now, actually. Yeah. And then they
I will say, though, regarding Borderlands, though, like, that's the thing. The art style is such a big part of what makes the game visually appealing to people. So that it's like, okay, like you were saying, Gabe, like, you bet they might not do that, and that's their decision. But again, it's like, okay, well, if you're going to move away from that, like, that's part of the whole selling point of the game. So you already have you have a lot of people that are going to be expecting something like that, or they're going to be waiting to see how they do it. And then if we end up getting something where it's just absent altogether, like, I just don't know how well that's going to sell, you know, in terms of convincing people that this is something worth going to check out. I don't know.
No, yeah, I agree, because that's what got me into it way back when, was that 2008, 9, when that game came out? That's what made me buy it, the art style.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's going to be interesting. I'm honestly shocked that they've never even tried to do like a Call of Duty movie with how much fucking Call of Duty makes. I mean, there's not much you could really do for a Call of Duty movie. It'd be some standard
Dunkirk,
but
you just call it Call of Duty.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that they'll eventually try, just out of the name alone. People will probably go see it.
I'm surprised
or
they
even like Grand
haven't
Theft
done a
Auto
Call of
or
Duty
something
movie
like
by
that.
now.
I always thought that they do a Grand Theft Auto movie, like a Vice City kind of. Yeah. But that's hard to replicate too, because that game was so freaking classic.
Yeah.
Just the aesthetics of it, it's kind of hard to replicate that. But
I would see a Red Dead Redemption. Like Red Dead Redemption is one of my favorite games.
Oh, dude,
I mean,
that's my top 5.
Western genre though, so for me, it's like that just kind of hits home. So I mean, that was gonna be. I was gonna say when you guys asked like something that hasn't been adapted yet, it would be that one for me.
Yeah, that first one was my favorite game of all time. At one point,
you like the first one more than the second, Chase?
You weren't ready for this answer. So I bought that game. I bought that game for like $60 new when it came out, and it sat on my shelf for 2 years, and I never broke the seal on it because I just never had the time for that. But I played eventually got into it, man. You're going to be proud of me.
Oh.
You're going to be proud of me. I got a whopping 10 minutes into that game. I got a whopping 10 minutes into Red Dead Redemption 2.
Oh, man. Will's like, no. Will, he said only 10 minutes into
Oh, you know
Red
what?
Dead
Don't even tell me what. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I definitely want to. It's a heavy investment, but the first one with John Marston was at one point. So there's a sequence of events. I guess we'll go over my tier list. It was Red Dead Redemption 1 because of the ending. It pulled at me. Then I got to Dead Space. Dead Space became my favorite game of all time. And then the reigning champion that has never changed is Portal 2. That's probably my most wanted adaptation because that could be one of the greatest sci-fi things to ever hit, the screen for a long time because the humor, everything. I think that would be an all-encompassing film if you did Portal. But yeah, Red Dead Redemption 1 is like my third favorite game of all time. I just never got around to the second one. I really don't play games anymore. I really don't. I think the last time I got into a heavy investment was Borderlands 3. But yeah, I mean, I'd agree with you. I would watch the living hell. I never played Revolver, which I know had Marston in it. But Red Dead Redemption 1, one of the most memorable scenes in a video game is when you're going to Mexico and it starts playing I literally listen to the song still by Jose Gonzalez, Far From Home. And when he's going to Mexico, you're riding the horse, and it's like so far away, dude, it's just fucking classic. And you're just controlling the horse, and it was one of the most cinematic games in that period for me, just the way it was done, everything. So I agree. I'd back that. I'd go see it. Just haven't gotten to the second one yet, though.
Yeah, two is better.
The second one's awesome, dude. Yeah, definitely play 2 if you. I mean, that's the thing with me though. Like, I was actually at my girl's yesterday, and it's on her console.
Yeah.
So I was logging on to throw in a Blu-ray, and I'm like, oh shit, Red Dead Redemption 2. Like, do I want to spend the red? I wouldn't be here right now if I chose to do that. I'd still be over there. So I can't do it, man. I lose track of time so easily when I get into it. That's why I don't play games as much anymore because I'm.
Well, I think with that one, I think all 3 of us love westerns, right? So it's like, I freaking love westerns, man. So like that game, I can just like, I'll lose myself and just play forever. Like it's so fucking well done. Especially, you need to play the second one, Chase. I know it's like a lot of fucking time, bro, but that story I feel like is take the first one and make it like 10 times more emotionally impactful. I feel like, and I love the first one, by the way. The first one's freaking fantastic.
Yeah,
just the second one though, it's freaking intense.
My best memories of Red Dead Redemption 2 was that was where I broke the seal. I played 10 minutes of the story, got online with the friends, and so we would get on our horses, and then we would max out the charge on it, and there's a cliff where your horse won't turn around when you hit the cliff, so we would just jump down.
Launch yourself?
Yeah, and just launch ourselves off the cliff. It was just fun. The way that everything would ragdoll, it was a great time. Yeah, I just never got around to it, like... Yeah, dude, it's just not much of a gamer anymore. Like I used to be a crazy gamer, man.
My brother, he'll probably get mad if he knows I told this story on the podcast, or maybe he won't care. But like so Red Dead Redemption 2, we had both bought it at the same time, and we're just kind of checking in with each other while we were playing it. And then like he was like on a mountain or something with his horse, and like tumbled down these like rocks, and like it was like literally like almost like a car rolling with it, but like with a horse. So he's like going down the mountain, and his horse died. and then he got pissed off and turned it off, and then like he never played after that. Like he was like 20 or 30 hours into it, and then I'm like, hey, did you ever play Red Dead? He's like, no, dude. He's like, my horse died. Like, and he never picked it up again, and I'm like, dude, like that's crazy. It's mind-boggling.
That's funny. Yeah, that would be one hell of an adaptation, like all three of them from Revolver, because there's a huge plot thread in that one, to Redemption, to 2. Well, no, it would have to go 2, then Redemption, because it's a prequel, right?
Yeah, 2's a prequel.
Yep, exactly. So it'd have to go Revolver 2, and then unless it goes before Revolver. But yeah, those are great. And one thing, I mean, John Carpenter's been tied to possibly do a Dead Space movie for the longest time. I don't know how I feel about that. Yeah, it's been so off and on because he's a mega Dead Space fan, like a huge Dead Space fan. Yeah,
dude,
he's a gamer.
Gabe, that's all John Carpenter does now is just smoke doobies and play video games.
Good for him. That's like the freaking like dream retirement right there.
But when he's not touring with the Halloween, because him and his son actually tour. I think they do. They go around. I don't know if they're doing it currently, but they've gone on a few tours since the new Halloween movies have come out to kind of tour the soundtrack, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So he goes and plays stuff from the newer films, and then obviously a lot of his own filmography, Escape from New York, Halloween, The Thing, all that. So it's cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah, he's chilling, playing video games when he's not, composing, I guess.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah,
there's a lot of like actors and like I mean I heard Ice-T's like a huge freaking gamer. Yeah, Henry Cavill's like freaking crazy, bro. That man like built his own PC and is just heavily invested in a whole bunch of different like I think he's doing Warhammer.
We didn't talk about The Witcher. I don't know if you guys want to touch on that.
I haven't watched that.
It's based on a novel as well, which I wasn't aware of, but I haven't seen the show.
Read the first novel. I'm horrible with books, bro. I open a book up and I'll do like 200 pages, put it down, and then start another book. 200 pages, put it down, start another book. Like that's how I am. I'm like, it's super weird. But like I read the first book and I'm like halfway through the second one, and it's the first season. It's different. It's different than the game. It's kind of different than the book. It was, but I kind of enjoyed watching it. It was kind of a fun ride. But I think that's why he left though, just because it was branching off so much from the source material that he was like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
But I mean, it's a fun series. I don't know if I'd recommend people watch it though. Like, I mean, that's a lot of time investment. That's like 10 hours for the first season, I think.
Do you guys want a Henry Cavill fun fact? I think a lot of people know this by now, but he almost wasn't Superman. Do you know why?
I think I heard this. Why?
Because he was playing World of Warcraft and hear his phone going off, and it was Zack Snyder calling him.
Yeah, I heard that. He was like had his headphones on or something, right?
Yeah, he almost didn't hear it. He was like super into World of Warcraft. I busted out laughing during that interview. I love him, dude. He's so passionate, and I think that's all. I haven't watched.
Humble dude.
I like literally want to watch Witcher for Henry Cavill. I haven't seen it. I heard it's super different, which again I'm okay with. I will give anything a shot, right? Unless it's Borderlands coming out without that art style, I'm not gonna go watch it. But The Witcher, I'll give it a try. Everything like that. But I mean, for him to get so pissed off on the creative direction to not want to come back for one of his favorite novels, games, everything of all time, and just be like, dude, like we need to do this. We need to like he just wants it to go. He doesn't want control or anything. Like for him to leave. Just because of creative differences, it's just wild. Like dude is just the most passionate person you could ever get attached to a project. Based on reports, he's one of the few people that you'd never hear anything bad but great things about him. Super charming guy. Passion drives him in everything he does. And now he's doing the Warhammer series, which I believe is Amazon, which I'm not a big 40K fan. I've played, I think, there was one with one of the dwarves from the world on it, Chaos Bane. I think I played that one a while ago, but I don't know anything about it. But I mean, Cavill's attached. I'll most likely give it a whirl. But otherwise, I have no opinion on Witcher.
Warhammer's a tabletop game too, right?
Yes, which was going to be
a tabletop game. Yeah,
we should segue
because they do the mini. He does the miniatures too. He paints the miniatures. Like he went to like some tour of like the factory where they have the miniatures, and he was there for like hours just staring at stuff. And he's just he's a cool guy. He's a super humble nerd who just like wants things to be done like just as faithful as to the source material as possible.
Yeah.
So I don't know anything about Warhammer. I've never played it. I've never never read about it, nothing. But like if he's attached to it, I'll watch it 100%.
I keep forgetting to bring this up, but I'm glad we're talking about tabletop games because I want to shout out one of the most surprising hits of this year, Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. That movie was...
Dude, we didn't talk about that.
Totally forgot about it.
Dude, oh my God. What a surprise that was.
Yeah. Will, you saw it?
I saw it. Yeah, I actually saw it over the weekend. Well, I shouldn't say the weekend. Last week while I was sick.
Yeah.
I picked it up at Best Buy. It was actually, it was really fun. I did not expect.
Hilarious.
The marketing is completely misleading for that movie, and this is the problem with like bad marketing is that they just don't get the central message of like what makes the film attractive or enticing.
Yeah.
Right? And like I watched it, and I'm like, what the like?
It was so fun.
I don't understand.
Yeah.
So much fun.
Yeah.
So much fun.
From beginning to end.
I'm glad you recommended it because I enjoyed it, and I thought everybody was solid too. Like everybody looked like they were having fun, like enjoying what was happening. I watched some of the behind the scenes stuff. There wasn't much on there, but I mean it
had good action. It had like good action, good. It was a good story, and I think it had a lot of heartwarming parts to it too, like interlaced with like a lot of like hilarious parts with it. I always think about the scene where the dude's like walking away on the beach, and then like he's like, you think he's gonna turn away from the rock, or he's gonna walk over. Or what? I forgot what happened, but the dude's like he like walks over the. It's just like stupid little silly stuff like that. It's such a freaking fun movie to watch, man. I had a blast with that movie.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was awesome.
Enjoyed it.
What's his? It's a bard in that world that sings, right? What's Chris Pine's character's role in the game?
He's
not a muse.
A rogue?
He's not a rogue. No, is he a rogue?
He's he's a thief, or like he steals stuff, doesn't he? Like he's.
I guess you could consider him a rogue, but I thought like a bard was somebody that like because he's got that banjo. Because that's the scene that I love the most. Whenever he's distracting them with like the alternate.
Oh yeah.
And then
that part's hilarious.
They're just super invested, and then it just goes the way it does. But yeah, like you said, everybody had a lot of fun. If you haven't seen that in any way, anybody listening, check it out.
Yeah,
that's probably the most surprising disc I've thrown in this year. Because I mean, it went on Black Friday, sale for $10. I knew I wanted to see it because a lot of people said great things about it. Word of mouth was strong. I think that has to be the strongest word of mouth movie I've seen since Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah, dude. Like, I saw it on streaming. I haven't seen the disc yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I saw it, I think, a few months ago. Just like you said, word of mouth. Everyone's like, dude, you need to watch it. And I was like, like Will said, whoever did the marketing for that movie needs to be fired. Just because the trailer was just so bad. It looked like a cheap, like video game adaptation that you're not going to care about. And it's like one of the funnest movies, one of the best surprises I've had watching a movie, at least this year.
Yeah.
I think his character is it a bard? Because he his whole point is to provide like a lighthearted, like, kind of interpretation of like what's happening. Because there's something like that in the game too. Pretty sure.
Yeah.
I wanted to shout out the funniest scene, and they're gonna be mild spoilers, so I might want to skip ahead in the next 30 seconds. So the part at the beginning, whenever he's giving his case to be released, and he has this whole breakout plan, but they're like, we were gonna release you, but he's just like, fuck you all, essentially, and then just flies right out of there. They're like, dude, you were gonna be released.
It's fucking hilarious.
That's when I knew I was in for a good ride, and they just kept telling him, dude, we don't care about your life story.
Yeah, I know, right?
Let's speed it up. Yeah, that was a great fun. I wouldn't be surprised if that breaks my top 10 list. Thinking about I've watched it twice since I bought the disc. I had such a good time with it.
Really?
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Was that this year? Did that come out earlier this year?
March.
Yeah, March.
I remember it opened the week
April.
before Super Mario. That was its biggest competition.
Wow, man! It just came out at a bad time. It was just marketed real poorly. I think like if it came out maybe like the next few months, like if they just waited, I think it could have done pretty well. But I'd probably put in my top 10. I still got to do my top 10 list. It's hard, man, just because I know I'm gonna do that Maestro review, but like there's some movies that just keep creeping into my top 5, dude. I'm getting in trouble. I keep saying this is my top 5, this is my top 5, and now I'm like, fuck, how many movies do I have in my top 5 now?
We all know this one's number one. We don't even have to, screw it. There you go. That's the episode for next year, guys. You heard it here first. Man. We aren't going to do it anymore.
You already know my number one. Out of complete Nolan bias, it's going to be probably.
He's gonna when he introduces his list, he's gonna sound like he's talking about Oppenheimer. And I saw a review like that in Letterboxd. It was actually super funny. It like spoke. It was written like they were describing Oppenheimer, and then it was like in the number 1 slot, and he's like, and number 2 is Oppenheimer. Like everything that was written out was like, oh, this is Oppenheimer, but it was Godzilla. It's funny.
That's great. Yeah. Any other shout outs before we wrap this up? Any other video game adaptations? Anything we haven't talked about? We can trash. I skipped over Halo because it was trash.
What do we want to do? One stay away from, one recommend, and one future, and like what we're anticipating. I mean, we kind of already did that, but anything else that comes to mind other than the ones that we mentioned? I would
stay away from Halo, like Chase said.
Yeah, that would be mine.
Yeah, I haven't seen Halo.
That's one of those.
Aesthetically,
Halo,
it looks
man.
good.
Like,
I
me
love
too.
Halo, I freaking love Halo.
You can't do what you did. You can take as much creative freedom as you can, but some of the things that they did in that, you just cannot do. Calling it Halo, you know what I mean? Like, that is the most disappointing. And this is coming off somebody that only watched 1 episode, so I'm an expert on everything they did in that season.
I actually watched the whole thing, bro. I watched the whole freaking thing.
I'm sorry.
And it's trash.
I'll give you 7 hours of my life back.
Let me say this though. I was telling Will this. Aesthetically, it looks fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like there are some scenes like during the show, like it sucks because like you're just like watching this complete garbage, and then you'll see like a cool like 10-minute like action sequence with, like Master Chief like freaking with the sword, and he's like slicing through Covenant and with his battle rifle, and it looks so dope. And I'm like, this looks so fucking cool, but it only lasts 10 minutes, and then you're watching. And then you have garbage again.
Then you see Master Chief's butt cheeks.
Dude, after that happened, bro, it's like, this is like, what the fuck? Yeah, dude, you see his fucking ass hanging out. I think he's having sex or something, right?
Yeah, they're having sex. I did see that. Yeah.
I was opposed to even like the helmet removal kind of thing. I know that was a big thing. Like,
I'm not cool with that.
Yeah, I was like, keep the helmet on, dude. I mean, obviously Mando works.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
the
perfect example. Do that, and then when you want to do it, like, dude, I can just Google
make it an emotional
name.
scene. Yeah.
I can just Google.
It's trash, dude. Dude. Some people were. I think it was on Reddit. Someone had posted and said like that's their favorite show of the year, and I'm like, at least someone enjoyed it. Someone enjoyed it. Never gonna shit on people's taste, but like if you liked it, then
by all
more
means,
power to you.
You just have an immaculate ability that I envy to be able to separate. Like I can take creative freedom, but yeah, that would be my trash. Recommend Sonic 2. Looking forward to Sonic 3.
So we recommend Last of Us, obviously, and I'm excited for this season 2 to come out, which is that. Wait till that comes out, Chase. Hopefully you watch it before then, because like, did you play Last of Us 2?
No,
you didn't even play the games, right?
Oh no, I played it. I just I really think I was playing it around the same time as Red Dead Redemption 2. Like I was just working so much, and to get heavily invested, I kept restarting the game because I'd take like a month back, and then I'd be like, I heard it's such an investment from beginning to end, so I'd keep restarting the game. I've done that prologue, I kid you not, at least 10, 15 times.
That's such a good prologue.
Yeah. But
when the second season comes out, people are gonna lose their fucking marbles the first episode or second episode. I don't know how they're gonna do it, but
we'll see.
I'm anticipating that, just like the second game when it came out, everyone lost their marbles when something happened. So Last of Us, and then it sounds like we're excited for BioShock we're excited for, or BioShock Borderlands.
Cautious waters.
Cautious waters, and I do want to make a BioShock adaptation, please. Like, give me BioShock.
Wasn't it Ken Levine? He retired, I thought.
Oh, really?
Ken Levine, listen to us. Maybe you're one of the ones. Listen to us. Make it.
Do it. I think that's it, guys. I don't think I have anything else
closing
to say.
thoughts?
I mean,
stay away from
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna download Red Dead Redemption 2 and just play that for the rest of the season.
Make sure your horse doesn't die.
Don't run it off cliffs like I used to.
What is it you have to get? You get like the horse deed. So
you have to go get like another. You can get another horse. It's just my brother was like, "That's my horse, dude." He's like, "That was my horse." I was like, trained, like, yeah, exactly. All right, guys. Well, we appreciate you guys for listening. Stay tuned. We have some other like small videos coming out and shorts and reviews. So we're trying to kind of expand on the content a little bit to give you guys a bit more. So be on the lookout for all that stuff. And as always, thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, everybody. And if you didn't see it, if you're just a listener over on the YouTube, we did upload a discussion review for Godzilla -1. And we do have some other more short form videos that will stay over there. We're going to try to keep this for hour-plus long conversations. Maybe put some reviews out there like we did Exorcist Believer. But check that out over there if you want to hear more of other twings and twangs.
I love when he does my job. I don't have to.
I'm sorry, you guys probably hear my dog snorting in the background. But
goodbye, everybody.